Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Turk addresses SBOC and soybean quality. We share some soybean and corn yields and hear about soybean varieties in the pipeline for 2025.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we got our regulars, Turk Reginator and Lynn Williams. We're going to start with Turk this week. We're going to change it up a little bit.
Okay, well,
what's going on in the news this week?
This week there's a lot of buzz. I've been hearing about the SBOC. DTM put out an article last week about OffColor soybeans in some of the yields and some of the grain elevators and the topics around talking about that. So I just wanted to kind of clear the air a little bit about what SBOC is. It's soybean off-color in a grain sample. So the Federal Grain Inspection grading standards for number one yellow soybeans is there's a certain amount of off-color soybeans that can be in there to qualify for number one soybeans. And then it's a different amount for number two soybeans. And so it's just 1% in a grain sample for number one yellow soybeans. And so the conversation about Enlist soybeans and having off-color soybeans and causing possible dock at the elevator is the topic of discussion this week. And so just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that during the development of Enlist soybeans, the grain trade signed off on the off colors that can occur in Enlist soybeans, sometimes under certain environmental conditions. And so what causes those off color soybeans? It's usually stress during a pod fill, and can cause higher incidence of this off-color occurrence in the soybeans. But the trade signed off, the grain trade signed off on it as those off-color soybeans are no different in seed quality, in germ, in oil content, and everything else. And so they are of the same value and same quality as any other soybean. So. But technically, under the Federal Grain Inspection standards, an elevator could dock for off-color soybeans. But again, lots of things can cause off-color soybeans.
Right. So when I was looking up before we started filming this, Corteva calls it like SCVV. It's like soybean color variation something. Mm-hmm. So there's really two different acronyms that we're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. And the way Corteva looks at it is it's not an SBOC issue,
right? Because
when us three were in a pickup yesterday, why did the SBOC originate? We want to talk about that a little bit.
Federal Grain Inspection Standards.
Right, but what made it originate? Like what?
So why do we have that standard to start with? Is because initially we had black soybeans and we had brown soybeans and we had yellow soybeans, and so the Federal Grain Inspection made the off-color designation standard to make sure that we had pure lines of yellow or black or brown soybeans initially, and that was way back in early 1900s or
whenever soybeans were introduced.
Yeah, and so that standard is that old, and so the Enlist soybeans can have some color variations, and that's why it had to be addressed during the development stage of Enlist soybeans with the grain trade to sign off on it, and they did, and FDA signed off on it as well as not being a concern for anything that FDA is looking at either. So really no difference in quality other than the appearance. And the appearance is there and can be real in certain conditions in certain years. I mean, we can see one variety of soybeans have a higher level of the variation from one year and then not see it at all the next year. It can be differences on the plant from the top of the bottom to the bottom of the plant as far as that variation. So it is out there, and it is something that can be addressed. Now, if someone is If an elevator or someone is docking just because they're Enlist soybeans, now that's a different story. So that has to be addressed because that would be an illegal dock, and so not covered under the grain inspection standards. So that we need to know right away. But other than educating the grain sampler or the grader, whoever's grading it, that there is no issue, and we'd be happy to do that. If someone has that issue, we just need to have the conversation that there is no difference in the value of that crop.
And this all stems from what would be, export market is really the biggest issue when it comes to this stuff. Anything that's
Food grade.
used domestically, we're not probably going to see any issues at all.
If it's being crushed, there should be no dock.
Yep.
Because the appearance issue is not a concern there.
One of our quality control standpoints that I wanted to kind of highlight because of this is we have all of the trays. So every seed lot that comes in has its own tray, and we go through and we keep all those trays throughout the entire year. And what I can tell you is that all of our group 1s, all of our group 2s, the majority of the group 4s, we don't see any issue
Ever.
with this variation in color. It shouldn't make people, you shouldn't be shying away from planting the beans that work the best. I think it's more of an education thing.
I wouldn't even say year to year. I mean, locally, having it grown personally, field to field difference. I mean, just wherever that environmental factor, iron can play a role in that. I just don't, it's a hot ticket item right now because it got put to the press, but it's one of those where, you can make noise about it, but is it really a real life issue? Probably not.
We had this same issue early on and kind of went away and there was no issue, and now it's kind of come to the forefront again because of this article, and again it'll continue to go away, or I think it's going to go away as well, because again we typically just don't see it.
When I first started here, that was the potential talk on one of them, because the grower found they just looked like they were what he called dirty. And when we sent that in to be tested, the one place, I guess, that it was going to be taken to was actually very excited because it came in 16% higher oil content than what they were seeing in other beans that were coming in. So high yielding beans, there's nothing wrong on that end. It's just that outside of the seed coat that
It's
just
the
has
hull of the seed, the hull of the bean. It doesn't affect the inside at all.
Correct. So we wanted to address that. What else we want to address this week? Lynn?
Something that I think is very exciting for my position, and I just want to give a public thank you to all of our dealers and our area sales managers. Sales right now are trending phenomenal. Excitement for Merschman wheat is definitely there. We're up really well on wheat. An early order on beans has been, I would say, one of the highest we've ever had going into the, we're not even done with September yet, and we're reaching some numbers that are pretty impressive. So I just wanted to share that with everyone because I think that's very exciting. I think it shows the demand for the Merschman products, both on the wheat and the soybean side, and also back to the Enlist stuff. I think the marketplace is very excited about Enlist E3 soybeans, so people are wanting to get their hands on them. That's for sure.
And we do have wheat to sell yet.
We do. We're sitting still great on supply. We'd love to sell out, obviously, but we're to the point where I really don't think we've gotten to peak wheat demand yet. This is just the people that are going to be very serious about wheat. They know they want to do it. They're ones that maybe weather has dictated that they have that availability and their time and the resources to do it. We're going to start to see, I would say to the south as they start getting stuff off, those individuals that are waiting to make sure that their soybeans are coming off, and where we're at here, waiting for some moisture to make sure that it's not, a complete desert. So I look for wheat to take off here in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yep.
So get your orders in if you haven't already, because it's we got a good supply, but demand is definitely outpacing any years that we've had before.
Yep.
I think potentially by the time of filming, we've already sold more wheat than we ever had in company history. So.
And high yielding Enlist soybeans, you've got we've seen some yields coming in this week, Lynn.
Yeah. We were visiting with some people and got some, got some text messages coming in of people pretty excited. Northern Iowa, some Saturns going 82 field average. Mercuries in a place that Mercuries don't really, I don't want to say have a fit, that's not the correct term, but isn't their target environment. On a strip trial went 88. We're looking at Mohawks here across the river running in the 70s. To the south, visiting with some of our area sales managers down there. They were hit with some drought. Corn's not looking good at all, but the bean yields, talking to Aaron down there, that there's some guys that are getting higher bean yields than they are corn yields, and the bean yields are pretty good. So, it's kind of one of those, you think that as bad as corn would be, beans are probably going to follow suit, but the stress tolerances that we have in our lineup are holding on through those stressy periods, and they caught some decent rains here in August, and we're able to get some good beans out. So don't want to sound like a broken record, but for, I would say, the fourth year in a row that we're looking at really good bean yields coming out of the Merschman lineup.
Yep.
Thanks, Ben.
Oh, yeah, no. It's just the size and scope of the breeding program have allowed the Enlist soybeans to really, really excel. So I'm excited to hear more yields come in. If any of our listeners would like to share yields with us, we always pass those on to let everybody know how things are going out there. It's a nice little yield check.
Mm-hmm. And corn, Stein corn, you've got your hands on some yourself.
Yep.
We've had a couple guys call in that have nosed into some corn, and as we're looking through cornfield, there definitely is going to be as we talked about before, the haves and have-nots. But preliminary reports on early corn that was planted looks to be very promising. The new MX varieties seem to be really, really shining. Our old workhorses are hanging in there as well. They're no dogs. I would say, selfishly, I'm really excited about these MX varieties. They're showing good stress tolerances, because these areas, we'll be quite frank, were not good conditions early. They were really wet. Probably on some of them, I would venture to say that a lot of our corn here in Lee County for sure was right on that window of, did we maybe put it in too wet? Did it get too wet afterwards? Borderline, it's not record yields, but for the circumstances, we're definitely trending above the 200 mark on that. And I'd say this year, yeah, if you're above 200, you ought to be pretty excited here locally. So,
yep.
Preliminarily, Stein corn, MX varieties, 9808 was another one. Over in West Central Illinois, looks to be shining through pretty good. So, a lot of positives that are coming out of the Stein corn front as well.
Yep. Those are just to highlight the MX 514, the MX 709, and then the 9808 are very, very popular products that, if you haven't given the Stein lineup a try, those products are all excellent for standability, excellent for yield. They can be placed on a lot of different soil types, and they excel really well. So very, very positive. Anything else? So us three had the opportunity this past Thursday to run up, and we are starting to work on, it's hard to believe, but the 2025 sales season already. So we're up looking at a whole bunch of new soybean varieties that we can potentially look at. We're looking at some potential Merschman corn varieties that we'll be bringing on in full force in the 2024 sales season. What was unique about being up there and looking at these different varieties, we obviously have what is available for going to be the 25 sales season in front of us, but in those plots that we were looking at, they have the very, very beginning stages of what is going to be the Corteva MS technology and BASF conglomeration for genetically modified cyst traits. So they're already being testing and variety trials, increases and things like that are already going on with that program. We have products that are going from pre-elite to elite on our MS Tech's, what could be like an E4, I don't know what they're going to call it, but it is an HPPD, which is our Balance or Elite 27 combination with the Enlist 3. Those products are going to be hitting the Elite trials next year. So there's a lot of, this isn't a one-trick pony coming out of the MS Tech camp. There's a lot of things that are progressing in our pipeline that we will have complete access to that's really exciting. So lots of cool products in what's going to be in the 25 lineup that we will be looking to move forward with. And it's just, it's that time of year. Mm-hmm. So that's what we get to do this time of year, is look at plots and figure out what's going to be the next best bean to jump into the lineup. So
thought it was interesting too on the the front. They've kind of taken the same approach that you have with our seed production, as far as doing a look for 2 years in North America instead of logistically putting themselves in a pickle on getting stuff from South America and back to North. I thought that was very interesting, and that we're giving, or they're giving themselves the opportunity to get 2 years worth of North America scores on diseases and that kind of stuff. So when this data comes from MS Tech and we're presented with it and we pass that along, or you put it in the seed guide, this is very replicated and very looked at data that's been getting put forward. So, I mean, not only are you in your process, getting a look at it yourself for a couple years, it's happening on that front. So when we're introducing these new products to the farmer, I mean, it's looked at very carefully, and these products are the creme de la creme when it comes to the lineup.
Absolutely. Anything else? Okay, so I hear you have the corny joke for the week.
I don't think this is corny. I think this is just flat out hilarious. So
okay, here we go.
I will try not to butcher this. So sorry, Joe, if I start laughing before I get to the punchline. Here we go. After getting home from work, Bob decided to pay his pal Pete a visit, since the latter lived 3 blocks away. It was just a stone's throw from his house. On reaching his destination, Bob called out to his friend but heard no response. He soon noticed the noise of a tractor and headed to the barn where Pete keeps the machine. Bob reached the farm only to find his buddy dancing naked around his John Deere tractor. The puzzled friend asked, "What are you doing?" Pete took a moment to rest and then responded, "My wife has been ignoring me lately, so I talked to my psychiatrist and he said I need to do something sexy to a tractor."
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. We'll see what Joe's comments are Monday when he gets back.
Yeah. I hope I'm here next week on Cup of Joe.
Nope, that sounds good. Well, thank you, Lynn, for the joke, and we appreciate everybody watching this week or tuning in to our podcast, and we will catch you next week. Hope harvest is going to start rolling in your guys' areas, so we'll catch you next week, and we thank you for your business.